Okay, we're live.
All right, good evening, everyone. This is a public informational meeting, day 2, on docket number 2025-0-0156, instituting a proceeding to review Hawaiian Electric's wildfire mitigation plan. I'm Leo Asuncion. I'm the chair of the Hawaii Public Utilities Commission. And like I said, this is the second of 2 public informational meetings on PUC docket number 2025-0156. And tonight's meeting, we will welcome comments from the County of Maui and also the County of Hawaii, Hawaii Island stakeholders. Yesterday, we welcomed comments from Oahu and statewide stakeholders. KIUC's, our Kauai Island Utility Cooperatives Wildfire Mitigation Plan will be addressed in a separate proceeding, and the notice for that public informational meeting will be forthcoming. The notice and agenda for this public informational meeting was published in the Honolulu Star Advertiser on April 13th and on April 20th, 2025. With me this evening are my fellow commissioners, Naomi Kawai and Colin Yost, as well as the consumer advocate, Michael Angelo, and representatives of Hawaiian Electric. Tonight's meeting is being live streamed on the PUC's YouTube channel. A recording will be later available on the same, and the link of the PUC's YouTube channel can be found on the PUC's website at puc.hawaii.gov. Just as a reminder, if there's anyone in the public online that wishes to speak or provide comments tonight, just in the chat function, make sure that you let us know that you want to chat, and then we will call on you as we get that list. Tonight's meeting, we will begin with Hawaiian Electric's presentation of an overview of their wildfire mitigation plan. Topics discussed include understanding wildfire risk, key mitigation activities to reduce the probability of ignitions, community engagement and emergency preparedness and response, strengthening stakeholder and community partnerships, and other subject areas as may be relevant and reasonable under the circumstances. On September 13th, 2024, the Commission directed Hawaiian Electric to develop a wildfire mitigation plan detailing its ongoing efforts and future mitigation plans to address wildfires as they relate to the provision of utility service, capital expenditures, operations, and/or finances. Hawaiian Electric filed its wildfire mitigation plan on January 10th, 2025, in docket number 2025-0156. Copies of the plan are publicly available on the Commission's electronic database, CDMS e-services, and you can basically search for that on the PUC's website and look and search for docket number 2025-0156. The plan is supplemented by Hawaiian Electric's filings in response to the Commission's informational requests and orders in the docket. In reviewing Hawaiian Electric's wildfire mitigation plan, the Commission will evaluate whether it complies with guidelines established by the Commission in Order Number 41531 and assess if it can reasonably be expected to reduce wildfire risk. Key evaluation criteria include technical feasibility and effectiveness, resource use efficiency, demonstrated continued progress, forward-looking improvements, clearly defined performance metrics, as well as additional factors that promote the public interest. This evaluation framework will guide the Commission's decision-making process and ensure transparency and clarity for how the WMP is assessed. The primary purpose of this meeting is for the Commission to hear community feedback on Hawaiian Electric's wildfire mitigation plan. The commission is not here to provide formal responses to questions about the plan. However, attendees are welcome to ask questions of both Hawaiian Electric and the consumer advocate after the end of the meeting, and we'll have it set up so that those online, if you have questions, you can direct them to the relevant representative that's here. Some ground rules for making comments tonight. Hawaiian Electric will be given 30 minutes to provide an overview of its wildfire mitigation plan, and the consumer advocate will be given 10 minutes to explain its role in the process and present any comments. All other commenters will have approximately 3 minutes to speak. And before I begin, I would like to point out a few guidelines so that we can ensure that we hear from everyone who wishes to comment. If you are making comments tonight, you may not give all or any portion of your allotted time to another speaker. If you wish to comment in person, and we do have some people here in person, please make sure you register with our staff at the sign-in table. If you are online, make sure in the chat function you list that you want to provide testimony. And you can also submit comments in writing to the commission through our website or by mail. Please reference docket number 2025-0156. And in the chat, we will put the web link for you to provide your comments, or also mailing them into the commission's offices here in Honolulu. If you do provide comments this evening, please, at the beginning of your allotted time, state your name, your island of residence, and whether or not you are making comments on behalf of an organization or as an individual. So we will start by calling up Mr. Mark Asano from Hawaiian Electric, who will give Hawaiian Electric's presentation on their wildfire mitigation plan. Mark?
All right. Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity for this public meeting to present Hawaiian Electric's wildfire safety strategy. My name is Mark Asano from Hawaiian Electric, and I'll be running through the topics that Chair noted at the top of this meeting, and go through the set of actions that are covered in our wildfire safety strategy. Slide. Okay, so as Chair noted, we plan to cover tonight understanding wildfire risk, key mitigation activities, community engagement and preparedness, as well as stakeholder and community partnerships. And as part of that, covering those topics, we will walk through the approach that we took in developing our wildfire safety strategy. Okay, the primary objective of our wildfire safety strategy or wildfire mitigation plan is to reduce or minimize ignitions from electrical infrastructure. We sought to do that by identifying areas of high risk on each island that we serve. That includes Oahu, Molokai, Lanai, Maui, and Hawaii Island. Addressing drivers of risk, engaging with community members, continuously improving our strategies, as well as estimating the costs and schedules to perform that mitigation work. As we approached the wildfire safety strategy, we recognize the need in talking with other community stakeholders to address the threat of wildfires is really a societal and economic threat to our state. There are different aspects of reducing the threat of wildfires that include fuels management, fire suppression, urban planning, as well as ignitions. Our strategy is really focused on ignitions from our transmission and distribution infrastructure. And so a lot of what we'll talk about tonight is centered around that, but we do recognize the collective approach that it will take to combat this threat. So we do actively work with other agencies that have a role in reducing the threat of wildfires within the state. So first, understanding wildfire risk, and I'll get into more detail in the coming slides regarding how we evaluated risk on each island. But in Hawaii, 99% of wildfires are human caused. And so a lot of, that kind of speaks to sort of the, electrical infrastructure isn't the only source of ignition, but it takes this collective approach to holistically reduce ignitions across the different areas and causes. Okay, next I'll get into the 4 pillars of our wildfire safety strategy. Those are grid hardening, situational awareness, operational practices, and stakeholder and community partnerships. And I'll go into detail on each of these. So when we talk about hardening the grid, that normally speaks to strengthening our infrastructure. That may include installing covered conductors, undergrounding of overhead lines, as well as replacing equipment on our transmission and distribution system. We also look at hardening the grid in terms of reducing the impacts to reliability that some of the other mitigation measures that we've implemented can introduce. So the first thing is covered conductors. So when you look at the poles and wires that we have running along roads or through the terrain and various places around the island, you'll notice a lot of our overhead lines are wood poles and wires, which are typically bare wires. And one of the ignition drivers are, failure of any type of equipment, weather related or vegetation cause, to name a couple of examples. And when you have wire that's uncovered, it can introduce sparks into, if there's a disturbance on the system. So covered conductor is one effective way to reduce ignition risk. Covered conductor consists of a covering that is on top of the bare wire to reduce the probability that ignitions would emanate from electrical infrastructure. These pictures here are just a few pictures of what covered conductor looks like. The next tactic is strategic undergrounding. On our distribution system today, about 50% of our lines are underground already. So as part of our strategy, there is quite a bit of a cost difference between undergrounding a line versus, say, upgrading something to upgrading an overhead line with covered conductor. So what we are planning to do is undertake a comprehensive study to look at ways to reduce costs, as well as identifying high-risk areas where we can best make use of the dollars to underground overhead lines. So that analysis will be taking place this year, and we'll in our next update, we'll be providing additional information on other locations that we can underground. I will note as well on undergrounding, we are focused this year on starting to scope out and design an undergrounding project within Lahaina as part of their rebuild efforts. One other note on undergrounding, aside from the cost, there are a number of challenges to undergrounding, especially in Hawaii with the terrain. For example, blue rock can be particularly difficult to work with. There's also cultural sensitivities as well. Oftentimes, when doing these projects, you may encounter EV kupuna, so that is also another consideration for our undergrounding efforts. Another aspect of grid hardening are replacement of wood poles. So in some cases, as part of our strategy, as we deploy covered conductor, for example, we may be replacing wood poles with different types of materials that are potentially stronger. For example, steel or composite type of poles. So that's also part of the wildfire mitigation plan. The next pillar that I mentioned was situational awareness. This is where we are able to provide more visibility and intelligence for our operators as to the real-time conditions, and that aids in helping us to make better decisions within our operations, especially during hazardous conditions. So regarding risk and the situational awareness, we undertook an effort to map out where we see risk on each island relative to our electric infrastructure. So this first map of Maui County shows in red where we believe there is high risk. And then in the yellow is a medium risk area. So some of our mitigations are being deployed in high and medium risk, and some other mitigations like covered conductor and undergrounding are for this first period focused in some of the high risk areas. So on Maui, for example, you'll notice there's quite a bit of what we've identified high risk in on the west side of Maui, as well as central Maui, and then in South Maui as well. The next slide is a map of Hawaii Island. We have identified high-risk areas in the Waikoloa area and Kohala areas, and then medium-risk areas in the other parts of East Hawaii as well as in South Hawaii. Okay, so as part of our situational awareness efforts, last year we deployed a lot of weather stations within the high-risk areas. As part of the strategy, we're going to continue to deploy weather stations in high and medium areas. And what the weather stations are doing is giving us real-time wind readings as well as relative humidity, which are critical attributes that we'd like to monitor. The weather stations also monitor other things as well. So what we've done is started to deploy these in within our electrical infrastructure in these high and medium areas. Prior to 2023, there were not actually too many National Weather Service weather stations. So this will help build out our weather network to give us better real-time visibility into the conditions, especially given the many microclimates within Hawaii. Another aspect of our situational awareness are cameras with AI capability to detect fires. So what we've done with the cameras, these are usually mounted on the top of our infrastructure or other places where there's a high vantage point. The cameras, they will monitor a 365-degree landscape, and if there is a detection of smoke or a fire, it can immediately notify first responders. So each of the county fire departments actively use these cameras. In some cases, they will get a notification from our cameras before they receive a 911 call. So it does help them to respond quicker, as well as help with their tactics in fighting fires as well. The next pillar that I mentioned are operational practices. So this relates to ways we've adjusted the way we operate the grid in order to reduce our wildfire risk. So I'll get into a few of those operational practices in the coming slides. One of the first mitigations that we've deployed and that we will continue to deploy is called fast trip and block reclose. So what fast trip means is typically our power lines have equipment that can detect disturbances. So anytime, for example, the wind blows and lines may touch each other, or if a tree branch blows into a line, the equipment can quickly detect that and automatically turn off power to make things safe. And then that protects the equipment as well as public safety. So fast trip simply means we've sped up that protective relay. So that does mean that in some cases, customers may experience more frequent and or longer duration outages. But we have weighed the risk of reliability with wildfire risk. So that's a trade-off that we've had to make. But we are finding ways to now improve the reliability in these areas, as well as try to be more surgical in terms of where exactly fast trip is being deployed. Another one of the operational practices is vegetation management. So, typically we will trim back trees that may encroach on our lines. Moving forward, we're also looking at hazard tree removals, which means any trees that may be, for example, diseased and have the ability to fall into our lines, have efforts to remove that, as well as vegetation around our equipment to reduce wildfire ignition risks. Another one is inspecting our assets annually. So moving forward, we are conducting more frequent inspection of our assets. You may also see drones in your neighborhood where our inspectors are using drones to fly over just our infrastructure. And that gives us close-up pictures of our equipment so that we can identify any conditions that may need to be repaired. This will also help improve, as well as vegetation management. It helps improve reliability as well as reducing ignition risks at the same time. And then one of the other operational practices are public safety power shutoffs. Some of you may be aware of this program that we launched in July of last year. So what a public safety power shutoff is a proactive shutting off of power when conditions are particularly hazardous especially for wildfires. Whereas when I talked about fast trip, that's more of an automatic mechanism. This is proactively and done by our operators. So this is really a last line of defense for protecting the public from wildfires that could potentially be caused by electrical infrastructure. And I'll get more into the process of how we make these decisions. But first, these three maps here show the potential areas where customers may experience an outage due to a PSPS event. You can also visit the website on the slide there, hawaiianelectric.com/PSPS maps. There is a tool to be able to search your address to determine whether you reside in one of these areas. So typically during wildfire season, which can run from the summer months all the way to fall and winter, we are monitoring the conditions throughout each island. The first trigger is if the National Weather Service calls a red flag warning, fire weather watch, or high wind warning. Those are triggers for us to stand up our emergency response teams to monitor weather conditions. So that does not mean that power will automatically be turned off. That just is a trigger for us to start monitoring hazardous conditions. So once we are closely monitoring conditions, we are looking for the combination of 45-mile-per-hour wind gusts, as well as relative humidity 45% or below. If those two criteria are met, that could potentially lead to a PSPS event where we are shutting off power. If that were to happen, we typically will wait for the hazardous conditions to pass before power is restored. And I'll get into that on the next couple of slides. So we will be communicating with customers if we believe that a PSPS event is possible. So the first way is through an alert, typically 24 to 48 hours in advance. If the National Weather Service, for example, calls a red flag warning, we won't always be able to have that much advance notice, but we will do our best to notify customers as far in advance as possible. There was an event last year where the National Weather Service did have a red flag warning with very little notice, so we weren't able to notify customers far in advance. But fortunately, we did not have to turn off power during that event. If those thresholds are met and we have to shut off power, the power will remain out until the conditions pass, and then the process of restoring power can begin. That does involve an inspection of all of our facilities and infrastructure before we can restore power to ensure that none of our lines have been damaged. If they were damaged, we need to repair them before we can actually restore power. So in some cases, these may be very long duration outages. We do encourage customers to be prepared. We will be communicating through a number of means, through email, text messaging, our mobile application, as well as through social media and other type of news media. As I mentioned, once a PSPS event is initiated and if power is shut off, there are a number of steps that we will go through before restoring power, as I spoke to on the last slide. As I mentioned, we do have a message broadcast tool that we use internally to get the word out to customers, and that's through text messaging, email, as well as automated voice messaging. Okay, the last pillar that I mentioned had to do with stakeholder and community partnerships. So in developing this plan, we have, for the large part of last year, We've been meeting with community members, government agencies, nonprofits, and other sectors on our plans and efforts and sought feedback. We held over 100 in-person or virtual type of public outreach events, attending a lot of public fairs and presenting our plans. We also had a working group and will continue to have a working group moving forward, comprising of various stakeholders around the state in order to better coordinate efforts as well as receive feedback on our wildfire mitigation efforts. So these are just some pictures on some of the events that we participated on each of the islands that we serve. Let's see, you can go to the next slide. On Maui, as I mentioned, we held like an emergency preparedness open house, as well as other public expos and events. And the same on Hawaii Island, really visiting the different parts of the island, and then just trying to get the word out and having the public aware and prepared for any potential emergencies. Okay, so to kind of summarize our stakeholder and community partnerships, we'll continue to work with the public and their customers and the residents of Hawaii that we serve. We continue to maintain our relationships with key partners within government agencies, nonprofits, and other sectors. And we also, are emphasizing emergency preparedness throughout the year for wildfires and even other disasters. As I mentioned, we continue to emphasize PSPS in our public awareness campaigns and outreach. Next. And finally, these are some links here that you can visit to get more information. We also have a PSPS hotline that you can call. And we encourage you folks to visit these websites just to have a better understanding and awareness. Okay, thank you. And that concludes my presentation tonight.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Asano. Next up, the consumer advocate, Mr. Angelo.
Good evening, members of the public. We greatly appreciate you taking your time to be here tonight to share your thoughts and concerns. Good evening as well, Chair Asuncion, Commissioner Kauai, Commissioner Yost, members of the commission, and members of the public. Again, we really appreciate you taking your time to be here tonight. My name is Michael Angelo, and I serve as the Executive Director of the Division of Consumer Advocacy in the Department of Commerce and Consumer Affairs. We're also known as the Consumer Advocate. I'm joined tonight by members of our staff and members of our consultant, a firm known as Jensen Hughes, and they have substantial experience in the review and development of wildfire safety mitigation strategies and plans. To provide a little context about the role of our office in the review of the Hawaiian Electric's wildfire safety mitigation plan, the consumer advocate represents the interest of consumers in regulated public utility and transportation matters before the Public Utilities Commission, or also known as the Commission, by advocating for the provision of safe and reliable utility services delivered cost effectively, equitably, and in alignment with the state's clean energy and climate goals. I'm here this evening to listen to the community's comments and concerns and help answer questions regarding our role in the review of Hawaiian Electric company's wildfire safety strategy and discuss briefly our role in the process. So the consumer advocate will independently review Hawaiian Electric's wildfire safety strategy and evaluate its reasonableness considering factors such as safety, reliability, cost effectiveness, and equity. As part of our analysis, we will conduct discovery where we will request data and information to evaluate the company's strategy. Then, later in this proceeding, we will submit the results of our analysis and recommendations to the Commission for their decision on whether to accept Hawaiian Electric's wildfire safety mitigation plan. Tonight, however, we are here to listen to the community's comments and concerns regarding the wildfire safety strategy and any comments and concerns that you may have, because they are an important part of our evaluation. And we encourage the public to express your opinions to the Commission and our office regarding Hawaiian Electric's proposal. This will assist both the consumer advocate and the Commission in our work. As we move forward, please feel free to contact the Consumer Advocate's Office at any time to share your thoughts, concerns, and questions regarding this or any utility matter. Thank you for the opportunity to provide these comments, and I'll provide our contact information. It's Post Office Box 541, Honolulu, Hawaii, 96809 for mail. Email is dca@dcca.hawaii.gov, and our phone number is 808-586-2800. Thank you again.
Thank you, Mr. Angelo. I'll now turn to members of the public that may wish to testify. Let's go online. If there's anyone online that wants to write comments, leave Matt Chalker.
Aloha, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Matt Chalker. I am from Wildfire Safety Advocates of Waikoloa on the Big Island here in Hawaii. And first off, I want to express gratitude that this document exists at all in the first place. I really, really, really appreciate that it was written, that people are thinking about wildfire safety and being forward-looking. I've actually read every page of the entire document and both appendixes, and I want to get a little bit more detail. That's the one thing that I am requesting on behalf of our organization, is that we're looking for more detail and more specificity in the Waikoloa region. And to serve as an example, I'm going to look at Appendix C, which is a list of all of the circuits, all of the transmission circuits throughout the state of Hawaii. And they're ranked by the wildfire consequence risk rank. And it's a complicated equation that goes into that, but they're literally ranked in order of basically how dangerous they're going to be if they fall over and start burning down the area around them. Our power lines, our transmission lines right next to Waikoloa Village are ranked 4th in the state. First most dangerous on Hawaii Island. The first 3 are all on Maui. Now, the reason this is interesting is they're 4.86 miles long, and they've got a lot of lines on them. The top lines on them are transmission lines that are 69,000 volts. I'm going to go through the 4 mitigation techniques listed throughout the safety strategy and just talk about them in relation to these lines. First up, EFT. Those, as far as I'm aware, are already implemented. Awesome. Love it. Please, more of that. Great. Second one, PSPS. We talked about it for a while. I, again, am in support of PSPS in general. If it's going to stop fire from happening, awesome. However, it's very important for everyone to know that our water here in Waikoloa Village comes from 4 wells, only 2 of which have backup generators for 24 hours on them. So if a PSPS is implemented, our firefighters instantly lose half of their water pressure immediately. So that's got to be somehow addressed in this whole situation for the equation, because that matters a lot. Second one, covered conductors. Those are not listed as an option for the mitigation assessments for Waikoloa Village. And that's because it's too high voltage. So I appreciate that that's a thing that's available, but what the Hawaiian Electric representative didn't mention is that industrially, they do not produce covered conductors over 42,000 volts. This is mentioned in, they call it out in the document, and I appreciate that's where I got it from, but our lines are 69,000 volts. Can't be covered. So those are going to be bare forever and ever. The last one is undergrounding, and that is listed as an option here, and I'd love it, but I know that's about a $60 million project, so that's not going to happen anytime soon. So what I'm trying to get at is I'd love some more specific details about our village. I know that that's not necessarily possible in the entire document, but I do want some more specificity dove into the actual lines and circuits, and if that's a thing that we can be considering, and make sure that PSPS events also address water supply and that is a factor in things. That's all. I appreciate it so much. Thank you for the time and the opportunity. Mahalo.
Thank you, Mr. Chalker. Maybe just a clarification.
Yes, yes.
When you talk about the water supply, are you talking, is that the municipal water system, like the county water system, or is this the private?
No, here in Waikoloa Village, we're on private water. We're serviced by
Okay.
Hawaii Water Service. And then our HOA is actually digging out several wells specifically just for irrigation purposes for the golf course. But all of those are on Hawaiian Electric's grid, except for 2 of Hawaii Water Services privately owned wells.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Is there anyone else online that wishes to provide comments? All right, no one else. Mr. Curtis is here, but he said he had his say last night and didn't have any more today, or? Okay. Are they here tonight or no? Okay. All right. Anyone else wishing to testify or provide comments? Okay. If not, we'll move to adjourn this meeting, but then again, if you have questions of Hawaiian Electric or the consumer advocate on the wildfire strategy, stick around and then we'll set it up so that you guys can kind of ask them off the record, basically. Following the conclusion of this public informational meeting, the commission and the consumer advocate will continue with their review of Hawaiian Electric's wildfire mitigation plan. The process will conclude with the commission's issuance of its written decision. I do wish to point out there are several important dates that are coming up in this proceeding. The first of which is on July 3rd, 2025, which is the target date for closing the current round of information requests to Hawaiian Electric. June 30th, 2025 is the deadline for the consumer advocate and interveners to submit their statements of position on the wildfire mitigation plan. And on August 15th, 2025, the deadline for Hawaiian Electric to submit any reply statement of position if necessary. So that's the more immediate items that are coming up. Of course, there's more to it after August 15th, but those are the I would say imminent deadlines that are coming up for the commission. So this concludes the second of 2 public informational meetings on docket number 2025-0156. Thank everyone for attending and participating this evening. So I'll adjourn this part of the meeting and hang on, and we'll do some shifting around and have people available if anyone has any questions from online.